In Genesis chapter 2, verses 16 and 17, we read, "The Lord God commanded the man, 'You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die.'" Then verse 25 says, "Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame." God gave them only one prohibition: do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I think they had it pretty good. All Adam and Eve had to do all day long was to garden and play with creation's only physically perfect and completely naked member of the opposite sex. Life wasn't so bad. It's important to emphasize this because God is pro-pleasure. In fact, He created all the pleasures. C.S. Lewis, in his satirical book, The Screwtape Letters, in which a senior tempter instructs a junior tempter on how to tempt Christians, wrote, "Never forget that when we are dealing with any pleasure in its healthy and normal and satisfying form, we are, in a sense, on the enemy's ground." This, writes senior tempter Screwtape, is because pleasure is His invention, not ours. He made all the pleasures. All our research so far has not enabled us to produce one. That's right. God created all the pleasures, including the enjoyment of food, drink, and sex. David praised the Lord in the Psalms that at your right hand are pleasures forevermore. That's Psalm 16:11. So again, Adam and Eve had it good, very good, but this doesn't last. Soon we learn in Genesis chapter 3, verses 4 and 5, that there was a serpent in the garden, which said to the woman, "You will not surely die, for God knows in the day that you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." There it is. God says don't eat this or you will die, but this satanically inspired serpent tells the woman that not only will she not die, but their lives will be better. In other words, the serpent tells Eve that God is not acting in their best interest. Satan tells them that God is holding back something that would otherwise benefit them. Isn't that the way teenagers often think? They will complain to their parents, "You're mean. Other parents let their kids do this." Such teens are saying that their parents are not acting in their best interest and are holding them back from something that would otherwise benefit them. I remember thinking that as well when I was a teen. I'm convinced that God arranged the family first and foremost such that it is a microcosm of what is going on in the larger universe. Parents and teenagers have the opportunity to see in their own interactions much of what is going on when it comes to God acting in our best interest. It's important for parents then to make sure that they don't tell their kids no only because they just don't want to be bothered, but when it truly is the case that something isn't in their best interest. In doing so, parents model how God treats humankind. God's prohibitions are for our good, not because He is lazy or selfish. Apparently, Eve decided that God wasn't acting in her best interest. Thus, Genesis chapter 3, verse 6 says, "So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was a delight to the eyes, and that the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate, and she also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate." And of course, it turns out that Satan lied to them. In verses 7 and 8, we read about what happened next. "Then the eyes of both were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loincloths. And then they hid themselves from the presence of the Lord." In other words, instead of feeling like gods, their nakedness embarrassed them. They were incapable of the intimate communion with God that they had once enjoyed. Then God pronounced their punishment for disobedience, and it explains much about why we suffer. In Genesis chapter 3, verse 16, He said to the woman, "I will surely multiply your pain in childbearing. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you." So there are two punishments. The first is that childbearing will now be very painful. That probably also includes everything related to childbearing, such as female reproductive problems. The second punishment is that the woman's desire will be for her husband, and that he will now rule over her. A husband ruling over his wife wasn't a part of the original plan, and the world since has witnessed many men treat women harshly and unjustly.